Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Thiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, beginning at 1 p.m. the Central Time Zones. I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. We're Fox News affiliates, and you'll see the logo up there. We're doing recording right now. However, I wanted to tell you can find us syndicated on television. That's Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Don't forget the podcast on thenewscasters.com. I get to say what I want to there as well. All the social media sites. Alan Mendenhall is with us right now. And Alan, you're going to get a kick out of this. Okay, so I've been fussing and complaining and griping and everything about TikTok until some of our viewers have been saying, why aren't you on TikTok? And I said, because they want my information. And one guy said, I already have your information. What do you think Google does? I mean, so you might as well join it. So I went on ahead and joined it. Haven't noticed anything any different. They haven't kicked me off yet. There yet. But Alan Mendenhall is he's an author and a speaker and just very professional guy. Tell us a little bit about your writings and I've been following you on Facebook. You got some great things happening to you in the career.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I actually joined the Heritage Foundation in 2 days, full time. I've been a visiting fellow there since October, and I'll be full time in 2 days. My initial position will be as a senior analyst, but that's subject to change within the first few months. Mm-hmm. And my writing is appearing in 1819 News Weekly now. I've been writing a weekly column since about November. Mm-hmm. And my colleague Dan Sutter and I just came out with a big study on public pensions. And that was published, I believe, last Monday, so about a week ago. And I'm always working on something, either academic writing or op-eds or other kinds of writing.
You know what? I love your financial part of you. I really do. And I've learned a lot myself. I'm old enough to be your mother. Let's just say I'm old enough to be your older sister. But lots of things have carried on to my son, and my son was able to pay his house off. And he and my daughter-in-law set a goal, and they wanted to have the house paid off before their 10th wedding anniversary. I freaked out a little bit when they said they were. I didn't say anything. I don't be one of those mothers. But he did say, we're going to put this house, it's a townhouse close to Raleigh, North Carolina. We're going to put it on the 30-year. Well, that almost kind of freaked me out a little bit until they started making extra payments. Yes. And while they had it paid off in less than 10 years and wound up saving over $100,000 in interest.
Yes, and that's something I'm trying to teach my son, who is 13, and he has started an eBay business where he sells baseball cards or other things, and he is putting the money into a bank account. Right now, he wants to use the money to buy a pressure washer so that he can also start a pressure washer business.
Smart.
And charge, whatever per driveway, but also to charge $20 per trash can. I guess everyone has two trash cans, one's for recycling, one's for trash, and $20 per house to do both of those, and then he'll charge for the driveway. But I've been trying to explain to him, the important thing is to get it into a savings account so you have compound interest, which grows dramatically over time. Mm-hmm. And I point out that even some of these small baseball card sales, like, for example, he'll sell some for like $3 and the other party pays for shipping. And I say, it's only $3, but if you put it in the bank, every $3 adds up. And it's something that I've learned just from doing my own taxes. I have an accountant who ultimately does my taxes, but I go through every single expense throughout the entire year and see what I can write off. And I've realized that even those little $3 purchases, they add up by the end of the year. If you were to not count all the $3 purchases, you'd miss out on opportunities. So yeah, it's important to count every penny. But I've also told him, look, if you get into investing, maybe we should take some of the money you make over the summer and put it into capital markets, buy you some stocks, maybe a mutual fund or some kind of index fund. And the reason why you want to do that is to mitigate risk. You diversify your portfolio, and that's what these mutual funds and index funds have, is a diversified portfolio. And so in that portfolio, if one particular industry has a downturn or one company goes bust or whatever, you've got all these other companies pooled into the security to mitigate the risk. And anyway, I think he's learning. My daughter, on the other hand, has cash just stuffed in pillowcases and things like that. I say, you got to put this in the bank. You're like my great grandmother. And she's like, no, if I put it in the bank, they take the money and don't give it back. I'm like, well, they're putting it in an account, but you're right that it's, that they're going and then giving the money away to someone, but there's a mathematical register of what you've inserted. Anyway, she doesn't have fractional reserve banking quite figured out, but it is funny that they're thinking about money, and I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, the quicker the better, I'm telling you. So Phil and I sold some property, and so we were trying to figure out what to do with the money. And so we put it into Wells Fargo, had a deal going on, and where they pay 4% interest. And of course, you let it keep compiling, in compound interest, which is something that I'm a fan of, compound interest. And I'm going to tell you what, that can grow pretty fast.
It can. It sure can. And that's the exciting thing about retirement accounts, whether it's a 401k or an IRA, or, I worked for the state of Alabama for the last 5 years. So my money has been going into a pension fund, and I have to now figure out what I'm going to do. May 31st is technically my last day with the state. And what am I going to do with the money that's accumulated in that fund? And I will probably roll 100% of it over into either a Roth IRA or something like that. But that will be what I do.
Is there something you would stay away from right now?
Like
CDs and stuff like that.
Well, mostly what I typically would say invest in mutual fund index funds. That's kind of what I do. I mean, when I was young, I had stock in like GE and Home Depot, and I had that in there for a while, and then I used it. I basically took all my money out and put it in other things. I went through this phase with my brother where we were investing in a really risky way when I was in law school, and I learned the hard way that that's not great. But we made a lot of money in a short amount of time, and I got really excited, and then we lost a lot of money doing that. So I learned the hard way. I wasn't in a great stage of life to be losing that kind of money.
Mm-hmm. Did the same thing. I actually worked for GTE back when they were Cellular One. Yeah, I was selling cell phones when nobody had them. And people would come to me and go, my bill's too high. Well, that was back in the day when if you talked a minute and a second, you got billed for 2 minutes. So that was a pretty rough time, but I made good money there. But the only thing is what happened to them, sometimes this happens in a buyout. So they go from actually Contel Cellular, and then they were bought out by GTE, and now they're with Verizon, and we have our cell phone services with them as well. But it seemed like with that particular company, when they were bought out and gulped up by another company, I don't know, I tend to lose money when that was happening. Does that happen a lot? Does that happen often?
Well, I think there are many different things that happen with mergers and acquisitions, and I don't know that there's just a standard pattern, and it's not something that are you talking about in the stock market? What happens when there's a merger or something like that?
My retirement. I lost money every single time there was a buyout. I lost.
Oh yeah, that's tough. I don't know if I can quantify how common that is, or I don't have any like empirical evidence to give you a great opinion on that. But I'm sorry that happened.
Well, actually the worst part happened during the Obama years, so it could have been that more so than the company, because a lot of like real estate went like you couldn't sell a house.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I remember looking at like the Fannie and Freddie stuff, and
a lot of stuff.
All the mortgage-backed securities issues that were going on in those days were unreal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I think real estate, though, might be ticking up just a little bit. I know that it is here in South Carolina, but I don't know. It may be that I'm going to get a little political here. Okay, so I have a friend. His name is Don Brown, and he's an attorney in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so he's on the show at least once a month. By the way, he's running for senator. And
oh, wow.
Get it. Yeah, I'd probably get it. So what's happening is North Carolina people are moving into South Carolina. And so my son and daughter-in-law told me they're paying almost $3,000 a year just on the taxes for their home.
And they're in North Carolina?
And it has jumped up. As a matter of fact, they're going to be moving to South Carolina. Taxes are a lot lower here, much more conservative state, that kind of thing.
Did they get rid of income tax in South Carolina?
Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Love in South Carolina. I'm fitting right in with those folks around here. But the thing, and someone did my taxes, and I wanted to ask you another question. So I go on the Facebook page, on the Abbeville, South Carolina Facebook page, and I said, my husband and I just moved into town. Who do you recommend to do taxes? I would rather have a conservative. Boy, those people liked me when I said that. I wanted someone conservative and not a liberal to do my taxes. Is that wise? Did I make a good decision about that? The outcome was good. I'll have to say that.
Well, I think it probably, I think it's always good to go with somebody you trust, first of all. And I think accountants, just as a class of people, tend to be just generally more conservative in the sense that, their job requires them to minimize audit risk and to protect you legally. The joke in, I know, many big firms is you don't ever take something to the general counsel's office because they're just going to tell you no, 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 when you're trying to figure out how to get to yes. But, they want to make sure you maximize your financial reputation, not just to protect you from audits, but to make sure you have, if you're running a business, a trustworthy and credible business. They want to make sure you have long-term stability for your business. But as an individual too, their job is to ensure that you're complying with all the tax laws, and you're much better off working with an accountant than you are doing your taxes yourself, because I think
I don't know any of the new laws, and from what I understand is, every year it can be totally different, and I wanted someone who was knowledgeable, and this lady is. I'm just telling you, she was just, and she said, now, there was something I had on there, and she said, now this is what I know from if they're looking to audit somebody, and she said, they're probably looking right over your shoulders right now because you're a conservative talk show host. She got that real quick. And she said, they're probably looking over you right now, looking to see what you do. She said, but there's some things, she said, there are just hot points that they'll just look at, It's so she said, I think we need to let this one go. And it wasn't really that big of a deal. I said, well, so you say don't do it. And she said, yeah, I wouldn't do that one. She said, because I happen to know, she said, this is a conservative part of the country here. You moved into a great place. She said, I happen to know people who have been audited, and it's always been this one thing.
Huh. Interesting.
And I don't remember what it was now. But anyway, she said, I just, she said, I'm looking at it after you. And she said, and of course, when you own a business, it's rare that you get anything back. But she was trying to keep me from paying as much as possible, but doing it the right way. She was, I don't want you to get audited.
Right.
She said there are certain red flags that the IRS can see.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I've been using the same accountant my entire adult life. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting nervous because I know he's getting close to retirement, and I don't know what to do. If I have to find another one, I don't know what to do.
Put something on Facebook. I want a conservative one. But anyway, this lady's name, she kept popping up. I mean, people around here going, use her. She is absolutely awesome. And if you own a business, I mean, she definitely was. See, I had someone really, really good in Alabama before we moved too. And she was spot on. I never got audited. I mean, she was almost the same person that I found here in Abbeville. And she was just like really on top of it. And she would say, now, this is what I've learned this year. She said, this is how she would always start out every conversation with me. This is what I found for this year. This is what's going to work. This is what's going to help you not pay in so much.
Yeah.
Those are good accountants.
Those are good accountants. And, it's really important to have those.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And one thing that she would say, too, she would say, you're very conservative in the way you spend your money. And I said, well, I'm not like the government. I mean, I don't just pop it out there. I mean, it's, I watch what I spend. And she said, that's really good. And so she said, sometimes what you don't, and this is true. Both my granddads used to say this all the time. They would say, some get wealth by watching what they spend, because you can make all the money in the world if you don't know how to handle it. If you don't know to not spend on just stupid stuff.
That's right.
Then you'll be wealthy.
That is true. A lot of people just do not have the spending habits down, and they live above their means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. Okay, so but before Phil and I were married, somehow my power bill was being paid. I would get a power bill, but it would show a zero like I had paid it in the month before. So I'm thinking they've messed something up. They're probably somebody else is they're putting somebody else's money into my account by accident somehow. So I called the power company and they said, no, somebody's coming in and paying it, your power bill. And I said, who would do that? I mean, the first thing I'm thinking of, I'm divorcee, is probably my dad doing it, So I got to Dad and I said, are you paying my power bill? He said, why would I do that? You make more money than I do. You need to be paying mine. And so I said, pay your power bill. I said, somebody's paying my power bill. And I said, what's going to happen when he says I'm going to get a $5,000 power bill? And they're going to say, pay it, demand it now, right now.
Yeah.
So Phil and I were just married, and he didn't know the money I was making with GTE. I was like their top person. So I had the check stub out on the table, and he walked by and he went, hold it. I've been paying your power bill. And I said, I'm trying to figure out, why have you been paying my power bill? He said, because the way you spend or don't spend money, I thought you were some poor divorcee that didn't have any money to your name. So I was just trying to help you out.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so sometimes the way we do, people see, he really thought I had nothing.
That is so funny. Wow.
Because I made a game out of coupons. And so there's a Harris Teeter chain up in the Carolinas. I love Harris Teeter.
I know the chain.
I love them. They're awesome. So they used to do triple coupons. And so you save the coupons, and there would be so many times I would walk out and the cashier would say, get a candy bar or something. I can't give you any change back. She said, you can buy something. So so I've just had a lifetime of doing that, and I've made a game out of it.
Yeah.
And if you're organized enough, a lot of people say, I don't want these coupons. But you'd pick up a quarter if you saw it down, on the ground. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. I never used the coupons, so that's something. My mom used to use them when I was young, and I don't think she does that anymore. But when I was young, she used to always do that.
Well, if you can find a grocery store that would do even double coupons, it can save you a lot of money in the long run.
I bet. Absolutely.
But just looking for ways to save money. Okay, it feels to me, I just want to, let me find out your analysis on this. Okay, President Trump is in. How do you feel the economy is doing? I'm not talking about what liberal media says. I'm just talking about, like, we have boots on the ground. We're in the real world. Okay, how do you feel the economy is doing right now?
Well, I'd say we have sort of a mixed bag. I think in general, it's doing fine. I don't think this recession word is applicable. I do think markets have been pretty unstable. I don't think there's any way you can deny that the markets have been unstable. But, and there was a small contraction in the market in the first quarter of 2025. But, I think forecasts are positive. I think inflation is under control since Trump took office. So we've moved in the right direction there. I know Trump wants the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, and it has not. And so we'll see what happens with that. I think we had a surprise job growth number, the last one that was released, and that was a positive development. People are making a lot about Trump's trade policy. He pretty I'd say famously, but historically entered into a trade deal with the UK over the weekend or maybe Friday of last week. And I think that's an important move, not just for the trade, but also as a signal to the allies of the United States that, hey, look, we want to work with our allies. Russia and China are one thing, but Japan, Israel, United Kingdom, if you want to be like those countries, we're willing to work on deals with you and be your partner. And I think that sends a strong signal to our allies, but also to countries that aren't as close to us as those three I just mentioned, but might want to be if they realize the incentive structure in place for that. So, the U.S. economy is pretty resilient. I will say the Heritage Foundation, where I'm about to begin, issued a World Economic Freedom Index, and it does show that the United States has dropped and this is over a period of years. This is not since the Trump administration, but this is over, decades. But it has dropped from it. There was a time when it was always right up at the top, and it is way down the list now. So that's going to have a long-term effect for our country until we can improve on our economic freedom.
How do you feel Trump presents himself to other countries? Do you feel positive about the way he approaches other countries, especially when it comes to tariffs?
Yeah, I think so. What Trump is trying to do with tariffs is he's a deals guy. He wants to enter into contracts. And if you look at trade agreements as contracts between nations, what he's trying to do is get the best deal possible. Yeah. And sometimes that means driving a hard line and taking positions that may seem off-putting to these foreign leaders. Mm-hmm. But, I think he's doing it for the sake of freer trade in the long term. And I say that because it's basically economic law that free trade is better. It's mutually beneficial to both countries. Countries have their own comparative advantages. And in a perfect world, we would have free trade all over the place. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world full of geopolitical conflict, historical contingencies, strained relationships. And so to say you can just enter into trade agreements with anybody is sometimes easier said than done. And what Trump, I think, is trying to do is hardball his way into better trade deals with other countries. And that's partially because of imbalances in trade. And we all know that China has not lived up to its side of the bargain in trade. If you look at it, again, in terms of contract, if I hire you to perform some task for me and you are not holding up your end of the bargain, but I'm holding up mine, why would I keep going in the same way as if nothing's happening? I would
common sense.
I would try to mitigate my losses and figure out a way to get somebody else to do the performance and get back what I haven't been given and all these different things. And if you think about trade in contractual terms in that way, things kind of make sense.
So you feel like this is the right approach? This is a businessman we're dealing with right now. This is not a guy who has been in politics his entire lifetime. Is this the best approach?
I think we'll find out. I think, the people are jumping to extreme positions on all sides. Obviously, the erratic markets are not ideal. We don't like the stock market doing this all the time. Mm-hmm. So that we would like to see stabilized. But we are seeing trade deals being negotiated, like this one with the UK, and there are others. And so, those are deals that are good, and we want to see more of those. And I think the real issue is the trade relationship with China and what that's going to mean and what American companies are going to do in response to Chinese policy. And China is a big, dangerous player on the international stage, and it's stealing trade secrets. It is preparing for mass cyber warfare against us, and it has way more people than we do. So, it's a precarious situation. And I think Trump has really thrown a wrench into Chinese policy in the sense that I don't really hear China talking daily about overtaking Taiwan right now because they don't really know what Trump might do in response to something like that. Trump's unpredictable. And in some ways, people might say that's bad. And for example, a lot of people that are in wealth management, investing stocks, they may not like that unpredictability. But I think the people in foreign policy like the unpredictability in the sense that if you are an enemy or potential enemy of the United States and Donald Trump is president, you have got to be careful about what you're doing, because you do not know what that man might do in response.
Well, so this is how you run a business. I mean, this is what I have always done. We used to own some cell phone companies. We were Nextel authorized agents, and we had 8 locations. I rarely hired someone who had worked for any kind of another cell phone company, because I especially if I knew who the company was and I knew who the person was who owned it, and I knew they were a bad manager. I just managing a team, I just didn't want them, because they would bring those bad habits into my business. And I see Trump, he's running it like we would run a business. Yeah. And you are unpredictable to your competitors.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When businesses operate differently, they treat different people differently. Obviously, you treat your employees, your consumers, the people who operate down your supply chain in a different way than you treat your competitors, right? I mean, that's obvious. And so it sort of stands to reason that similar logic would obtain in international relations, where you treat your allies, your citizens, and those countries you do business with differently than you treat your enemies.
Yeah, but you know something, you have to, it's the way you look at things. Okay, so I had somebody, it's a competitor who was constantly breathing down my neck. He wanted to steal my employees all the time. It was just something all the time. So he puts this big, huge billboard up. I mean, right at my store. Well, so, yeah, but this was a great thing. It worked out. Even though it had his name on it, I trained all my employees, always ask how they heard about us. People started saying the billboard. And I was like, we don't have a billboard. So I happened to drive by that store one day, and I said, there's the billboard, but it's not mine. So I happened to be at a meeting, and I walked up to him and I said, Bruce, thanks for the billboard. And he looked at me really funny, because he thought he would get people to go from my place to his place. And he looked at me really funny, and I said, I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing that, because it just really helps my business. They're not looking at your name. They're looking at Nextel, and they see me right there. So the billboard. Well, he took the billboard down. But anyway, that let me know that's why he did it. He thought, well, they're going to be going to my place instead of Donna's place, you know. And so sometimes it's just the way you look at it. Because I looked at it that way. The first thing I saw on the billboard was not his name. It was Nextel phones.
Yes.
And so people, they're flying by on Highway 431 in Albertville, Alabama. They're flying by. Nobody ever drives the speed limit. So they're flying by. They're going to see the big Nextel logo. And there I am.
And there you are right there. Yeah.
So anyway, we're friends now, but that was not a good friend time for me and Bruce at that time. But I did thank him for the billboards. We're going to have to go into a commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody hang in there. Alan, we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna, and I am your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday. Beginning at 1 p.m. Central Time, I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. By the way, we've been doing this for 20 years. It was 20 years of all times, April 1st. And a lot of folks have said, that sounds like some kind of a joke. But what happened there is Tom Williams owned the station I was in. And so he said, we're going to do a talk show. You're going to be the host. And I'm like, no, I think I'll probably forget my name. I don't think I need to be your host of your noontime show. But it worked out. And I said, but when do we start? And he said, let's do April 1st. And I said, April 1st? April Fool's Day? That's when you want me to start my show? He said, look, you can't even remember your wedding anniversary half the time. He said, let's do April 1st. You'll always remember it. And he was right. I always remember April 1st. So it's been 20 years. And I'm going to tell you what, I think it's because we have the absolute best sponsors. We do. I mean, they're the best. They've followed with me for years. And also we have the absolute best audience. You guys are awesome. And we have the best guests, like this one right here, Alan Mendenhall. And Alan's been a guest of the show for many, many years, and definitely appreciate his insight and his input on the financial world and other things too. He's an author and he is a speaker. Let's talk about your latest writings and where can folks buy it?
Well, my latest book is actually a co-edited volume that I did with a couple of friends, and it's on old Philadelphia Society speeches that we edited, and they're about controversies within conservatism. So it takes different controversies from previous Philadelphia Society meetings and foregrounds them and talks about the different positions that people took in those debates. But most of my writing is available on my website, which is www.alanmendenhall.com. And you can scroll to a tab that says books and buy books through there. And you can link to publications where I put my op-eds and research papers and other forms of writing. So I like to write about different things. Every week I'm writing about something different.
I like the one you wrote. You're a kid growing up, and it's just the fun things. And I said that to say this. I'm seeing a difference in young people now. They seem to be a little more conservative leaning.
I think conservatism is becoming hip. It's been transgressive when the status quo and all the centers of power in the media and the university system and corporate America are all left leaning. Well, to be edgy, to be different, to be subversive, you've got to be conservative now. And so I think there's something going on there. I also believe that there is something inherent in conservatism that is attractive to people who want to feel part of something bigger than themselves. So we have become such an atomized society, and everybody is so consumed by selfie culture and social media. And you would think that social media would plug you into everything, but I also think it has an alienating effect in the sense that you are alone when you're doing these things, that the community you feel is somewhat artificial. Now, it's different. The way I use social media, for example, on Facebook, these are people that I'm about to see at conferences or to do this, and we socialize in anticipation of our great reunion. And But there are other people that just sit at home alone and they're just doing their social media and they don't have these tangible relationships with people. They don't have this felt community, and that can be problematic. But I think what these young people are seeing is what I call, a lot of young people are converting to Catholicism. And I say, well, I think part of it is that they want to feel part of something bigger than themselves. They want to feel like they're part of the Church Universal, something with centuries of history. And part of it is the Harry Potter aesthetic to it. They like this idea of old stuff, and the church provides that.
Yeah, I think so too. But do you think Charlie Kirk has anything to do with this? Because he's out talking to kids at universities, and I'm not able to see everything he does, but the ones I have seen, he's involving the students in the conversation. He's not just like, I'm preaching to you, you need to be conservative. There's nothing like that at all. He's gathering information from them. They don't even know he's doing it. But I think, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think one thing that Charlie Kirk does well, and I don't watch a lot of Charlie Kirk, but my son does. And my son's 13. So this is exactly what you're talking about.
You just made my point.
Exactly. He gravitates to the Charlie Kirk. And I think one thing that my son finds attractive about what Charlie Kirk does is that he exposes the intellectual bankruptcy of the left, because the left purports to be intellectually superior. But in fact, when you start pressing on people, in particular, the sheep, I'll call them the sheep that follow the leaders, they don't really have much to offer. They don't have a lot of ideas. And I think leftism in particular today in the United States is without moorings. When you ask what is somebody, like, what are they working towards? They might say, oh, it's equality or diversity. It's like, well, equality and diversity are actually sort of fundamentally incompatible ideals. And someone in the left might say, well, why is that? Well, equality of people requires some sort of leveling. It requires standardization and uniformity. And that is the opposite of diversity. And diversity is about pluralism and differences. And actually, it's the right now that's championing diverse perspectives and viewpoints on college campuses and freedom of speech. And it's not the left. The left is actually trying to enforce this narrow, homogenous way of thinking and doing, whereas the right actually is more open to differences. And that is that is a fundamental challenge to the left as to what even does the left stand for? What is it trying to achieve? It's easy if you ask a Christian, why are you going through life? What are you doing? The Christianity has an eschatology. It has a commitment to God and to working through the teachings of Jesus. And you know what your life is for. You ask a Marxist what a Marxist thinks, and they have their own stadial eschatology, a secular eschatology. They've got their own teleology. But the left in the United States is just a bunch of random grievances, like, oh, this racial grievance, that racial grievance. It's why, the Israel-Hamas Palestine issue is so complex for the left, is because, oh no, their grievance cultures are all bumping up against each other, and we don't know which one to support. Like, how do we do? Like, what are we going to do? But they want to play victim, and they want to try to stand for whatever race, gender, class prism they can draw politics through. But in this era of Donald Trump and populism, that prism in particular in that class category has sort of exploded for the left as sort of the middle class more broadly, and then even some of the lower class breaking for Trump in populism because he speaks to them and for them in ways that the left doesn't.
Well, and then he likes all groups, and then also people, they've done some research, and things that have been said about Trump are not true. He was actually going through the court system, was supposed to be left for dead. Just look at it that way. Do you feel that backfired? The whole thing with it seemed like the whole United States wanted to see him in court, except for us, of course. But
the lawfare. Yeah, absolutely. Because, Americans as a people, despite how much government has grown over the past several decades, have a strong libertarian streak, even when they're conservative. And I say that in the sense that they have an instinctive distrust of power. And when the powers that be are weaponizing the government against somebody because of his political views and stances, Americans are able to see that as facially unjust. And they are able to tell that this is a frightening thing because they see that happen to Trump. They say, well, if that can happen to Trump, that can happen to me. And that's one thing about the January 6th situation that was very different is typically when you have a situation of unrest, the prosecutorial role is to go after the people at the top. Mm-hmm. But with January 6th, they went after all the people at the bottom. And I think ordinary Americans looked at that and said, oh, well, I stood with Trump and I think there's something fishy about that election, and it could have been me. You know, when people can see themselves in the in the people being convicted, then they start looking at the prosecutorial role as dangerous, and then they were looking at the government as dangerous, and Biden weaponizing the government. And this comes after, you know, Obama weaponizing the IRS, and now you've got Biden weaponizing essentially everything, every single agency of the federal government weaponized against conservatives and conservative viewpoints. And that was scary to people who weren't even conservative because they thought, this isn't really the function of government.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said that that's it. We got to think about this. Okay, so you're driving down the road. There's an accident up ahead of you. How many times have you said, whoa, that could have been me?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people were doing about the whole thing. Let's take Trump to court. Let's put him under the jail cell. Let's do whatever we can do to punish him. I think people thought, man, that could be me.
Well, and it gave an impression that America was a banana republic. You know, we were just like these countries where, you know, there's giant kickback scheme run the state-run oil company, and the politicians are trying to throw each other in prison, and you know it stank of corruption, and all that going on while you had very obvious crimes being committed by the president's son, Hunter Biden, and nothing was happening to him. He was never in danger of going to prison, and it just seemed like, okay, they're going to go after Donald Trump for taking legal positions, and then Hunter Biden's actually going to commit crimes and get away with them, and people just can see through all that.
Well, again, and we're talking about the young folks again, how many times were you in school where, and it could have been someone of prominence, a teacher maybe let them by with something, and then you know, like it or not, some teachers have pets, and we've all saw this happen in school. And then, you know, someone really did something, but because they were somebody's son or someone's daughter, they got by with it. But then you see that same teacher picking on somebody else for something that wasn't half what that was. See, and these young people say they're from, not been out of school that long, and they're seeing things like this happen, and they're like, well, wait a minute. That doesn't seem right. Something's wrong with that.
You're exactly right. I mean, I think when something is glaringly unjust, people can pick it up pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. But then think about this. Okay, so, and I think that one of the smartest moves Trump ever made, he's an avid chess player. I mean, it's so obvious. Okay, so I would have probably went somewhere and whined if let's say Abbeville police picked me up, put me in jail, and wanted to take a picture of me. I'd be whining it out, crying, Phil, come get me. Something like that. But what did Trump do? He did that famous pose, the famous pose. And right. that spoke volumes. That was like, I'm not backing down. They're coming after you. They're not coming after me. They're using me to come after you. And I'm telling you, that settled with a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think the fact that there were 2 assassination attempts also underscored the severity of the sort of political opposition that the Democrats were fomenting. They're fomenting violence. And how dangerous is this, that a political candidate is literally getting shot? I mean, the bullet hit him.
Had he turned his head the other way, we would have witnessed his brains being splattered out. And
I know that was the moment when I realized, maybe there's something, I think, providential going on here. It was hard to see that and not think, oh, he's going to win now, because
he got it. I mean, and then when they're helping him and he's walking towards the vehicle and you see the blood coming down off of his face and he's holding his fist up like that. Yeah. I mean, they handed him the election. I don't think they thought he would react that way.
I don't think they did too.
And I mean, it was the perfect reaction. Yeah,
it was. And they get up to fight. I mean, it was unreal what happened. And that Biden and Harris were watching that thinking, oh my goodness.
We've lost.
Yeah, they obviously they had to come out and condemn the act, because any reasonable human being would, but they also had to think, oh my gosh, these people, like, they have to distance themselves from the crazy people that do stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile have to say nice things about Trump because it happened. It had to drive them crazy.
Well, it has to. And then also the crowds nobody shied from going to the events after that. I mean, it was just like he still had massive, massive crowds, which wants to bring you to something else. And I'm still talking about young folks. Young people aren't stupid. So this is something else young folks noticed, AI. Okay, so AI is out there. So the Democrats are going to facilitate, to make it look as if, okay, so Kamala Harris was coming off of an airplane. She landed somewhere. And AI, which was a terrible rendition of it, wanted to make it look as if there was a massive crowd out there. But all you had to do, so let's just say I am a liberal. I would have thought, what do you think, I'm stupid? Because I'm seeing the same people on the front line right here. It's the same woman, and she has a hat on here, has a different hairstyle here, different clothes on here. And then there's some guy that just kept looping and falling in the back over and over. It was like he was on a Ferris wheel or something, over and over again. So, I mean, wouldn't that make you think, they think we are stupid? They think, you go to a Trump rally, look at any of the reels. It's a crowd. It's a real deal. But then you see that footage, and they're wanting it to make it look as if just crowds of people are waiting to see Kamala Harris come off of a plane.
Well, this is what's interesting about the community notes on X, formerly Twitter. And it's that when things get posted, just the aggregation of ordinary people observing can determine what's AI deepfake and what's real pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So when somebody in a position like Harris in that campaign puts out something that's AI, there's going to be a result that's an erosion of public trust when people in numbers start analyzing things and saying this is fake. I mean, when you have a lot of people looking at stuff, they can figure out what's real and what's not, in addition to the fact that there are actually people present at the place who can say, that's not what it looked like, So I think there are a couple things going on. First is, in the attempt to try to gain legitimacy and credibility and support by using AI to manipulate facts, in fact, the Harris campaign undermined those things and eroded public trust in her campaign. Her biggest struggle with voters was inauthenticity. Nobody thought that she was authentic. Nobody thought that she actually held a view that she really believed in. She was just this squish of a person who was going to say whatever it took to get elected. Mm-hmm. I feel as if her use of AI undermined everything she was trying to achieve with it.
Well, I think she was insulting people to really, it was insulting to think she would think you would really believe that.
Yeah. And I think that
And
goes
you wouldn't notice the same faces.
and that would go with everything she said from I grew up in a middle class family. Starting a debate was like that. Like nobody really believed anything she said. And the people that were her big supporters probably looked at lines like that and said, okay, she checked that box. She said that, that she said what she's supposed to say. That's good. Rather than like, she is who she is, she is the person she's supposed to be. It was more of she's saying the right thing.
Well, another thing she did too is right before the election, she went to, I think it was the night of the election. Okay, so she went to the college that she graduated
Howard.
from.
She went to Howard.
And she didn't show up.
She didn't. Yep, that's right. And all those people stood outside waiting, but then it became clear she wasn't going to win. Mm-hmm. And that was a glum-looking crowd. They looked
crying in the streets. I mean, those people were. I mean, the people were just crying about that.
Miserable.
I think they did it. Other things did too. But in other words, you're not important. See, I would have been thinking about I'll run against Trump in 4 years. I mean, myself, I would have been thinking that. But she's not thinking that way. A narcissist never thinks that way. They're only in the now, what's happening right now.
Yeah, that's true.
I would have been thinking, you know what? I'm going to go because I'm going to run in 4 years and I'm going to show his rear end. I'm going to beat him next time. But she didn't think ahead. So she just didn't show up. Well, what did that tell the people? We're not important enough for you to come.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly right. Whereas, I think Trump is very, very good at knowing what the people want to see and how to give it to them.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was really telling too. He lost the election. Well, he won. That he beat Trump. But anyway, he beat Biden. But right after that election, he's at the police department, one of the police departments in New York City. And I'm going to tell you, the cops love him. I mean, they were just all over him. As a matter of fact, he was talking with them. It was not sound bites. Now, you can find it on YouTube. No sound bites. This is like raw. This is raw material here. And so he was out there talking to the cops. He was sitting down talking to them. And some of them were saying, we wish you'd been voted in and blah, blah, I voted for you, that kind of thing. And so this is when, all kinds of weird stuff is happening with the mayor in New York. And so one guy actually spoke up and said, well, then run for mayor. Would you run for mayor of New York? And he was like, I graduated from high school here. I've come back for the reunion. It was kind of that platform. He makes it real. He makes it, I want to be here. He's not looking at his watch. He's not looking over people's heads. He's looking at them. And some of my friends who were Trump haters to begin with love him now because they've met him. And they said he is absolutely nothing like I thought he was. Ann Eubanks, one of them, she hated him. And so she's with the Alabama Legislative Watchdogs. And she said, who are you going to vote for? She was Ted Cruz, she was over the Alabama, for Ted Cruz thing. And I said, I'm voting for Trump. She said, you mean you're not going to vote for Ted Cruz? And I said, no, I like him. I think he's a neat guy. But you got to have somebody like Trump now because it's got to be led. And he's the one that can shove it. He's the one that can happen. I really do believe it. I feel it in my heart. He's Ross Perot, but he's stronger than Ross Perot. I said, I think he can do it like this. Well, she says, well, I'll not vote for him. And I said, so you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton? I mean, what are you going to do? And so she said, I just won't vote. Well, she had the opportunity to meet him. She comes back and she said, my God, you were right. She said, this guy's nothing like I thought he was. And I said, well, what was he like? And she said, he looks at you. She said, in not a flirty way or anything like that. She said, he looks at you and he studies you. And she said, he was letting me talk. She said, I thought I would be, not get a word in edgewise because of, the way the media had him out to be. And she said, he hardly even talked. She said, he asked me questions. He wanted to know about me.
Yeah.
And she said it was personable. She said it was very personable. Oh, and she said Melania was just drop dead gorgeous. She said, that's the most beautiful I think I've ever seen in my life. And she said she was just graceful, And but anyway, she said that and also Terry used to be on the Republican Party in the state of Alabama. She was the same way. Terry said, I'm not, no. You like Trump? And I said, yeah, I like him. I said, it kind of makes me think of my dad. I said, but just get the thing job, just get it done. He's just one of those. My dad was that way. And she said, Linus, I think he's too rude. I don't think you need a rude president like that. And I said, I don't think he's rude. He's just saying the truth. He's just saying what we're all thinking. I said, Tell me, aren't you thinking some of the stuff he says? She says, yeah, but I'm not saying it. And I said, but you got to. I think that's the way it's got to be. Then she meets him. She loves Trump now. I mean, she said, Donna, he said the same thing Ann said. He is nothing like what media says he is. He's going to be a great president.
Isn't that funny how that happens?
Yeah, because she got to see the real thing. No AI, no sound bites, no nothing. And she went several times to get to meet him.
Wow. Well, I know a guy right out here who plays golf with him. He's a professional and says that Trump is just hilarious on the golf course. Just a funny guy to play with. And he's very competitive too.
Yeah, I was talking to John Merrill about him. They're friends. And he's been to Mar-a-Lago several times. And I said, what's he like? And he said, he's funny. I said, what do you mean funny? He said, he's just funny. He said, he's very personable. And, and he likes to lighten the conversation up. People are tense. I'm meeting the president. Ooh, I'm scared, like that. He said he doesn't want anybody scared of him.
Yeah.
There's respect, but he doesn't want people afraid of him. And the media wants to make it sound as if he wants everybody afraid of him. No, it's not like that at all. Not from people I know who've met him up close and personal. Not at all. Alan, we're going to have to go. Can you believe how fast an hour flies by when we have a show?
I can't believe it. Unreal.
Gosh, how can folks find your books?
Just my website, www.alanmendenhall.com. There's a tab up top with books. That's probably the best way.
There you go. Folks, we got to call it today. Thank you so much for being with us. You're the reason we do this. And thank you for a wonderful, wonderful 20 years. You know what? 20 years from now, I'll be like 86. I don't know. But, if Martha Stewart can do it, I can do it. Okay, so there you go. But thank you again, Alan. It's one of our wonderful guests that we love having on the show. And thank you guys so much for watching. Continue sending emails, Donna@Donna'sEdge.com, Donna@Donna'sEdge.com. And yes, I read every single one of them. So thank you again for sending those. You're not bothering me at all. Have a great one. We'll see you a little bit later. The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462.
Because of your overwhelming support, our 1488 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing, including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.